Hey guys, hope you're all okay and having a lovely day so far. Thank you so much for all the extra work you've been sending in. It's been great to look at. Well done to everyone who has been quizzing over the last few days. Our scores are absolutely brilliant. Well done for those people who are... Hello, Mr. Morris. Come on in. I'm 17 seconds into the video.
It's lunchtime.
It is lunchtime. You're going to stand
You
there?
should probably do it in lessons next time.
Bye, Mr. Morris.
Bye.
Leave the door open. I'm sure Miss Jones will be in shortly. Some of you even got your gold award, so thank you so much for everything you've been doing. Okay, let's get back to chapter 6, the race. Now there began a desperate race. The machines against the foxes. In the beginning, the hill looked like this. So there it is. There's the hill with the tractors coming. After about an hour, the machines bit away more and more soil from the hilltop. It looked like this. So that's it after an hour. Sometimes the foxes would gain a little ground and the clanking noises would grow fainter, and Mr. Fox would say, "We're going to make it. I'm sure we are." But then a few moments later, the machines would come back at them and the crunch of the mighty shovels would get louder and louder. Once the foxes actually saw the sharp metal edge of one of the shovels as it scraped up the earth just behind them. I'm nervous now. I keep thinking someone's going to walk in. "Keep going, my darlings," panted Mr. Fox. "Don't give up. Keep going," the fat boggis shouted to Bunce and Bean. "We'll get him any moment now." "Have you caught sight of him yet?" Bean called back. "Not yet," shouted Boris, "but I think you're close." "I'll pick him up with my bucket," shouted Bunce. "I'll chop him to pieces." But by lunchtime, the machines were still at it, and so were the poor foxes. Their hill now looked like this. The farmers didn't stop for lunch. They were too keen to finish the job. "Hey there, Mr. Fox," yelled Bunce, leaning out of his tractor. "We're coming to get you now." "You've had your last chicken," yelled Boggis. "You'll never come prowling around my farm again." A sort of madness had taken hold of the three men. The tall, skinny Bean, the dwarfish, pot-bellied Bunce, were driving their machines like maniacs, racing the motors and making the shovels dig at a terrific speed. The fat Boggis was hopping about like a dervish, not quite sure what they are, and shouting, "Faster, faster!" By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, this is what had happened to the hill. Wow. Poor countryside. The hole the machines had dug was like the crater of a volcano. It was such an extraordinary sight that crowds of people came rushing out from the surrounding villages to have a look. They stood on the edge of the crater and stared down at Boggis, Bunce and Bean. "Hey there, Boggis, what's going on?" "We're after a fox." "You must be mad." The people jeered and laughed, but this only made the three farmers more furious and more obstinate and more determined than ever not to give up until they had caught the fox. There's the people looking at what had happened to their beautiful countryside. Chapter 7, We'll Never Let Him Go. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Bean switched off the motor of his tractor and climbed down from the driver's seat. Bunce did the same. Both men had had enough. They were tired and stiff from driving the tractors all day. They were also hungry. Slowly they walked over to the small fox's hole in the bottom of the huge crater. Bean's face was purple with rage. Bunce was cursing the fox with dirty words that cannot be printed. Boggis came waddling up. "Dang and blast that filthy stinking fox," he said. "What the heck do we do now?" "I'll tell you what we don't do," said Bean. "We don't let him go." "We'll never let him go," Bunce declared. "Never, never, never," cried Boggis. "Did you hear that, Mr. Fox?" yelled Bean, bending low and shouting down the hole. "It's not over yet, Mr. Fox. We're not going home till we've strung you up dead as a dingbat." Whereupon the three men all shook hands with one another and swore a solemn oath that they would not go back to their farms until the fox was caught. "What's the next move?" asked Bunce, the pot-bellied dwarf. "We're sending you down the hole to fetch him up," said Bean. "Down you go." "Not me," screamed Bunce, running away. Bean made a sickly smile. When he smiled, you saw his scarlet gums. You saw more gums than teeth. "There's only one thing to do," he said. "We'll starve him out. We'll camp here day and night watching the hole. He'll have to come out in the end. He just will have to." So Boggis and Bunce and Bean sent messages down to their farms asking for tents, sleeping bags and supper. Okay, chapter 8. The foxes begin to starve. That evening, 3 tents were put up in the crater on the hill. One for Boggis, one for Bunce and one for Bean. The tents surrounded Mr. Fox's hole and the 3 farmers sat outside their tents eating their supper. Boggis had 3 boiled chickens smothered in dumplings. Bunce had 6 doughnuts filled with disgusting goose liver paste, and Bean had 2 gallons of cider. All 3 of them kept their guns beside them. Boggis picked up a steaming chicken and held it close to the fox's hole. "Can you smell this, Mr. Fox?" he shouted. "Lovely, tender chicken. Why don't you come up and get it?" The rich scent of chicken wafted down the tunnel to where the foxes were crouching. "Oh, Dad," said one of the small foxes, "couldn't we just sneak up there and snatch it out of his hand?" "Don't you dare," said Mrs. Fox. "That's just what they want you to do." "But we're so hungry," they cried. "How long will it be till we get something to eat?" Their mother didn't answer them, nor did their father. There was no answer to give. As darkness fell, Bunce and Bean switched on the powerful headlamps of the 2 tractors and shone them down the hole. There they are doing that. "Now," said Bean, "we'll take it in turns to keep watch. 1 watches while 2 sleep, and so on, all through the night." Boggis said, "What if the fox digs a hole right through the hill and comes out on the other side? You didn't think of that, did you?" "Of course I did," said Bean, pretending that he had. "Go on then, tell us the answer." Bean picked something small and black out of his ear and flicked it away. How many men have you got working on your farm?" he asked. 35, said Boggis. "I've got 36, said Bunce. "And I've got 37, said Bean. "That makes 108 men altogether. We must order them to surround the hill. Each man will have a gun and a flashlight. There will be no escape for Mr. Fox." So the order went down to the farms, and that night 108 men formed a tight ring around the bottom of the hill. They were armed with sticks and guns and hatchets and pistols and all sorts of other horrible weapons. This made it quite impossible for a fox, or indeed any other animal, to escape from the hill. The next day the watching and waiting went on. Boggis, Bunce and Bean sat upon small stools staring at the fox's hole. They didn't talk much. They just sat there with their guns on their laps. Every so often Mr. Fox would creep a little closer towards the mouth of the tunnel and take a sniff. Then he would creep back again and say, "They're still there." "Are you quite sure?" Mrs. Fox would ask. "Positive," said Mr. Fox. "I can smell that man Bean a mile away. He stinks." Okay, I'm going to leave it ready on chapter 9. That's Mr. Fox Has a Plan. Okay, thank you so much for listening to me today. Have a wonderful rest of the day. I think I made it through the whole story without Miss Jones realising I was in here. Have a great day, guys, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.